Welcome to Games from Folk Tales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, Witch Stories, The Ghost and the Succubus. This week, a couple of little stories from Linton. The creatures here are an infernal ghost and a succubus, both of which can be modelled using Realms of Power Infernal. Thanks to the LibriVox readers and their production teams, starts eventually.
Witch Stories by E. Lynn Linton. The Ghost of the Black-Browed Maid. Read by Sonia. If bodies were safer after death, characters were not. Isabel Harriot was a maid of all work to the minister at Preston. She was of a low stature, small and slender of body, of a black complexion. Her head stood somewhat awry upon her neck. She was of a droll and jeering humour, and would have spoken to persons of honour with great confidence. After some short time of service, her master the minister began to dislike her, because she was not eager in her religious duties. So he discharged her, and in 1680 she died, and, about the time of her death, her face became extremely black. 2 or 3 nights after her burial, one Isabel Murray saw her, in her white grave-clothes, walk from the chapel to the minister's louping-on stone, horse-block. Here she halted, leaning her elbow on the stone, then went in at the back gate, and so towards the stable. A few nights after this, stones were flung at the minister's house, over the roof, and in at the doors and windows, but they fell softly for the most part, and did no especial damage. Yet one night, just as the minister was coming in at the hall door, a great stone was flung after him, which hit the door very smartly, and marked it. Isabel Murray was also hit with stones, and the serving-man, who looked to the horses, was gripped at the heel by something which made him cry out lustily. So it went on. Stones and clods and lighted coals, and even an old horse-comb long since lost, were perpetually flying about, and only by severe prayer was the minister able to lay the devil who molested them. Soon Isabel Murray reappeared with a fresh set of circumstances concerning the ghost of her namesake Isabel Harriot, the maid of all work. She said that as she was coming from church between sermons, to visit her house and kailyard for fear some vagrant cows might have got over the dyke, which were very likely of the true McClarty type, on going down her own yard, which was next to the minister's, she saw again the apparition of Isabel Harriot, as she was when laid in her coffin. Never an egg liker to another than this apparition was like to her, as to her face, her stature, her motion, her tongue, and behaviour. Her face was black like the molten soot, the very colour which her face had when she died. The ghost was walking under the fruit-trees, and over the beds where the seeds had been sown, bending her body downwards, as if she had been seeking somewhat off the ground, and saying, "Astarn, Astarn." Her lap was full of stones. As some people supposed, the stones she cast in the night-time, and these stones she threw down, as if to harbour them, at the bush-root in the garden. Isabel Murray, nothing daunted, goes up to her. "Wow," says she, "what's thou doing here, Isabel Harriot?" "I charge thee by the law thou lives on to tell me," says the ghost. "I am come again because I wronged my master when I was his servant, for it was I that stealed his shekel." This was a Jewish shekel of gold, which, with some other things, had been stolen from him several years before, which I hid under the hearthstone in the kitchen, and then when I flighted, took it into the Canongate, and did offer to sell it to a French woman who lodged where I served, who asked where I got it. I told her I found it between Leith and Edinburgh. Then she went on to make further confession. Having filed herself for a thief, she went on to show how she had been also a witch. "One night," says the ghost, "I was riding home late from the town, and near the head of Fanside Brae the horse stumbled, and I said, 'The devil raise thee!' Whereupon the foul thief appeared presently to me, and threatened me, if I would not grant to destroy my master the minister, he would throw me into a deep hole, which I suppose is yet remaining, or if I could not get power over my master, I should strive to destroy the schoolmaster. It was very remarkable, says George Sinclair, as a kind of commentary, that one of the minister's servant women had given to the schoolmaster's servant woman some linens to make clean, among which there was a cross-cloth of strong linen, which could never be found, though diligent search was made for it, till one morning the master awakening found it bound round about his nightcap, which bred admiration both to himself and his wife. No more scathe was the devil or the witches able to do him. What way this was done, or for what end, it cannot be well known. But it is somewhat probable that they designed to strangle and destroy him in the night time, which is their usual time in working and doing of mischief. This happened about the time, I suppose, that the devil had charged Isabel Harriot to destroy this honest man. Yet within 2 days a young child of his, of a year old, fell sick, which was quickly pulled away by death, none knowing the cause or nature of the disease. Isabel Murray went on to say that furthermore the ghost confessed to her that she, Isabel Harriot, when in life, had met the devil a second time at Alfiston Mill, near to Ormiston, and she told what foulness the devil did to her. Also one night as she was coming home from Haddington Market with some horse-corn, she met the devil at Knock Hills, and he bade her destroy Thomas Anderson, who was riding with her. When she refused, he threw all the horse-corn off the horse. This Thomas Anderson was a Christian man, and when Murray told her tale, well remembered that Isabel had got up the next morning timeously, and brought home her oats which had lain in the road all the night. She said, too, that she had cheated her master whenever she went to the market to buy oats, charging him more than they cost, not an unusual practice with servants at market anywhere. And she told Isabel Murray that the stone cast at her was not for herself, but for her goodman, who had once flung her, the ghost, into the jaw-hole, and abused her. At this point Murray said she began to be frightened, and ran home in all haste. So Isabel Harriot's character was settled forever, and her neighbours only thought the judgment came too late.
Witch Stories by E. Lynn Linton. The Succubus. Read by Nicole DiDio, Calverton, Maryland, 2023. William Barton, a loose-lived man of notoriously strong passions, was apprehended for witchcraft. His confession included the not very frequent Scottish element of a succubus, a demon under the form of a beautiful woman who beguiled him, and to whom he made himself over for love and gold. She baptized him under the name of John Baptiste, gave him her mark and 15 pounds of Scots in good gold as tocher money, and then they parted. When he had gone but a little way, she called him back and gave him a mark to spend at the ferry, desiring him to keep the 15 pounds safe and unbroken. At this point in his confession, the poor wretch was weary and asked leave to go to sleep, which, for a wonderful stretch of humanity, the judges granted. Suddenly he awakened with a loud laugh. The magistrates asked why he laughed, and he said that during his sleep the devil had come to him, very angry at his confession, and bidding him deny all when he awoke, for he should be his warrant. After this he became obdurate, and would never confess anything again. The devil persuaded him that no man should take his life, and even when they told him that the stake was set up and the fire built round, he only answered he cared not for all that, for, said he, I shall not die this day. How should he, if no man was to kill him? Upon this the executioner came into the prison, but fell stone dead as he crossed the threshold. Hastily the magistrates offered a reward to the executioner's wife if she would undertake her husband's office, and strangle the poor mad fellow before he was burnt, which she agreed to do, for all that she was in great pain and grief, clapping her hands and crying, Duel for this parting, my dear bird Andrew Martin. When the warlock heard that a woman was to put him to death, he fell into a passion of crying, saying that the devil had deceived him, and let no man ever trust his promises again. Barton's wife was imprisoned with him. On her side, she declared that she had never known her husband to be a warlock, he on his that he had never known her to be a witch. But presently the mask fell off, and she confessed. She said that malice against one of her neighbors had driven her to give herself over to the devil, that he had baptized her by the name of Margaratus, and taken her to be very near to him. A great deal too near for even a virtuous woman's thoughts. When asked if she had found pleasure in his society, she answered, "Never much." But one night, going to a witch's dance upon Pentland Hills, he went before them all in the likeness of a rough tanny dog, playing on a pair of pipes. "The spring he played," said she, "was, 'The silly bit chicken, gar cast it a pickle, and it will grow mickle.' And coming down the hill, they had the best sport of all. The devil carried the candle, and his tail went, I wig wag, wig wag. Margaratus was burnt with her husband."